Great to see you all. And we have a very important evening, saying goodbye to our first poet laureate, Gordie Whiteman, and hello to Mark Schwartz. The other name, what's his name? McGuire. Mark McGuire Schwartz. I know. The name, that's good. So first we're going to start with an open mic, though. And so any of you who have brought poems, we would love to have you read them. I know Jason, who is Gordie's son, has one. Would you like to start us off?
Yeah.
You can do that.
I was sitting in the sun dazing away here. This would be nice to hear. Oh, it's my daughter. She says hi. She knows she's in California. She says, I know you're there, but I wanted to interrupt with a phone. A lot of people don't like this. I write on a phone now. It's where I do everything, and so a lot of times when I'm sitting in places, I don't want to be disrespectful or rude, but you know, I just leave the rude to my
Jason, could you speak up a little bit?
I can, no problem. All right, I can get loud. So I wrote a piece this afternoon because I went through everything that I have, and just nothing was hitting. And so this is really just fresh, and it's meant to, if you have something that gets invoked while you're sitting there, then please say something. It's like sitting in a circle and calling somebody in who's not present, but you want to have them be a part of the circle. So as I'm reading, it's going to be a little ad lib. I haven't even gone back and looked at it too much. But I start off by saying the thing that I saw when I left my house was this old flyer for basketball, 1963, Westbrook against Guilford. And it's really interesting to read the back of it and just get names like D'Amico and Country Tavern and Hardee's and Igley's. And now he'll know him from 20 and 30 years beyond that, which is great. But it's so fun for me to see these things. It's around the time that I grew up. So it's entitled, He was born into my history. He was born into my history of Black Friday, of giving a slip of paper that got food and a nod, of a family living amongst all of this great Guilford Green, of history, Tennessee Valley Act, CCC, actually heard of Nazi, of Hitler, FDR, Churchill, of Rosa Parks. I'm starting to skip around all of his living, born into my history. All of then into now, he was born into my history. What else amongst us am I hearing? Jim Crow, what do you know?
Louder.
Louder of louder. Of I'm not really soft, but I should yell.
Yes.
What do you know of what he was born into that you, all the history since 1929? 1929. Just anything that's in your mind is history of us that he's lived through. It's really cool. It's a lot. I think about it because I work with kids. And I work with kids who are growing up after COVID. There's just rampant, just drugs and all these other things that are out there. And we were talking with the woman that was sitting over here, Tracy, earlier, and it was just like it's not the way that it used to be. Running around the town green and hearing a bell for dinner. Did you know a commune? He lived in my history, communally. What else made among hundreds of moons? What else was made among hundreds of moons of history, born into? You know they're here. Pele, Muhammad Ali. These are my favorites. This is my history. These are the things that I loved. It took 86 years for the Red Sox to win again in his life. 86 years. It's a lot of seasons. Wiggling in delight, right there, my son at age 10 was able to get one early. I'm on the phone with him. What else? What else is wiggling in your delight? What is there that we're not speaking about? We're not saying, we're not hearing. Who's that person that's like not here? Say their name, that grandparent. Any takers? Anything? Anything you've lived through? This is what I was writing and going through about this. and realizing that he was born into my history. And I love it, and I just love thinking about it. Polio, lived with polio. The grip, I believe, I think that's what it was called, but to hear his stories about polio and what he lived through, to be here, thankful for that. Now I know in the room that there's family and friends, but other things. I've heard tales that I've never expected to hear, like Moscow, Mali, Cat Calloway, Skidamarinka-Dink, all of those things. They were part of my growing up, and I'm thankful for it. 38 Hurricane, shows up in one of his books. Just, it's great. Robert Frost, Donald Hall, Andrea, love of his life. In my memory, his living, now giving, so we can free ourselves to what? What do you see that's become another's history? I sure do love you, Dad, Gordy. You born into now, maker of my memories.
Great introduction to Gordy's evening. That's
there you
wonderful.
go.
Perfect. Who else would like to read? Kate? Kate is a member of the Guilford Poets. Yeah. So this is a light-hearted poem to celebrate a wonderful sunny day. It's called The Pendant. A glimmer of silver, a sparkle of light, caught my eye there on the ground, was a pendant, a small sterling leaf, veined with tiny diamonds, chain and all, a delicate find on the rough tar of the Walmart lot. Something lost, now something found, leaving just my name and number should someone come looking. I checked back in a week, then two, thinking maybe, even wishing that it would remain lost and become mine. There was no claim, so now it hangs around my neck and is often noticed by others. It looks like you, an old friend commented. Did she mean understated but notable, simple but stylish, or charmingly lost but hoping to be found? When she read that to our group, we all said, oh, you should have worn it, so I'm glad you did tonight. Dan, would you like to read?
Sure.
Dan is always special in his reading. He memorizes them, unlike the rest of us.
I confess I have never done this poem from memory in public, so here it goes. Guilford Green. Hear the clang of the trolley on the way to the Eli with the young and their laughter. Intoxicating ragtime and jazz float through the air. The Guilford Fair Calliope melodically sings. Soak up Sousa marches, patriotic and brassy. Hear the clip-clop of horses' hooves, pulling a surrey of giggling Gibson girls on Whitfield or Park, Boston or Broad. Hear the hissing and honking of the red Stanley steamer, the whistle and chug of the steam locomotive hauling passengers bound for Beantown or Gotham. Be gentle when visiting this ancient ground. Tread lightly upon the concrete paths which crisscross from corner to corner. Use your softest cat's paw feet on the green grass spaces. Lean lightly when resting against gnarly old tree trunks, lest the roots feel your presence. Walk slowly, never rush. Muffle the band to a peaceful hush. Be aware, my friend, others are resting too. not far away, not at all far away.
Marion, would you like to read next? Marion was introduced to us by her readings at R.J. Julia. She started reading her poetry there, and so we were glad to have her come tonight. Please.
So I don't know too many of you here. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Okay. But those who know me know that my husband passed away during the pandemic. And what do writers do when shit happens? We write about it. So this is when I'm writing a book about the process, and here's one that I just recently finished. Butterfly. When my mother was dying, there was a cloud forming, low, fluffy, crowding out the entire blue, a masterpiece as any Michelangelo. After my father died, I would walk through my house and feel cold pockets of air. Just after my oldest parrot passed, I walked along the bay and was greeted by a monarch butterfly who flew right up to my face, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And 3 years since you've been gone, cardinals still visit, the lights in the house still flicker. Our parrots insist on going to your paintings on the walls and are still calling, hello? Angels? God? Maybe both.
Evelyn, did you say you had something?
Yeah, I didn't bring that.
No. Norman?
Oh, it's a part of it, yeah. Still going on.
Norman is my co-president of the Guild. I try to keep him in line. Forget about it.
I have written a 17, which is attributed to Mark as having innovated, and I think it speaks to the character of Mark. I think a less stalwart poet may have stopped at 15 or 16, but he continued on to 17. And so now I'd like to honor, if that's the word, Mark, with a 17. And if you can't hear me in the back, speak up, tell me to talk louder. Misunderstanding 17, more or less. 1. What is a poet? 2. Huh? 3. What the hell is a poet? 4. Is that the best way you can ask that question? 5. I'll have to think about that. 6. And this is number 6. 11 more to go. 7. Well, there should be a break halfway through. 8. Well, do it now. We're at 8. 9. Halfway would be 8.5. 10. There is no 8.5 in poetry. 11. I hate your all or nothing rantings. 12. Then stop writing poetry. 13. Good idea. 14. It's almost baseball season anyway. 15. Winter is poetry. 16. Yeah, and baseball season is prose. 17. Shut up.
You'll be hearing other different versions of the 17 over the evening, I think. Is there anyone else who has a poem for the open mic? Great.
I don't know anybody, so
You'll have to introduce yourself.
myself. I lived in Tiffany. I lived in Guilford from 1960 to 78. I worked at the town hall in the communications department from about 68 to 78. And I worked there with someone named Doris Stinson. And this is a poem that I wrote because you'll understand. It's called The Spendthrift Heart. Doris, as I read the poems you gave me that I bound and kept for so many years, it warms my heart to feel your heartfelt memories and the musings and reminiscences so dear to you. They are so emotional, they bring me to tears, and they do. As I read your eloquent poems, I realize just how inadequate a poet I am. The one entitled The Spendthrift Heart is a gem of emotion and excellence that reveals to me what a true poet is. It tells me that I will never be one.
Where do you live now? I live in Madison now.
Oh, we didn't move far away. Is there anyone else who'd like to read tonight? I think we're ready then to introduce the star of the night. One of the stars, Gordy Whiteman. I know a lot of you are relatives in the audience, which is wonderful. We're so happy to have you here. He could fill a room with his, 19 grandchildren and now 12 great-grands, one just born today. Gordy has 2 books of poetry, but he tells me they're sold out. I say he should have more printed. But anyway, you can get them at the library. They have them here in the stacks. He's working on another book of poetry with his son Jason. And I said, when's it coming out? And he just says, in progress. Is that right? One of the things Gordy is most proud of, besides his wonderful family, is that he initiated the beginning of a league. Is that the right name now? Council. What is it? The Council of Poets Laureate of Connecticut. When he was made Poet Laureate, there were only 5 others in the state. And what the league has done, or these 5 people did, was instigate Poet Laureates all over the state. So now there are over 40. And Gordy was the first one to start a poetry reading of, including the Poet Laureates. The first one is at Branford, but we had one here in Guilford also, as I remember. So he's really activated a wonderful thing in Connecticut. But he says that some of these towns had no idea how to get a group of poets together to figure out who should be the Poet Laureate. That we are very unusual, that we had something like the Guilford Poets Guild and a lot of other organizations of the arts that most towns don't have. So I will welcome Gordy Whiteman.
Boy, this is nice to see so many people here. Matt Bowie is here, our first selectman. Hi, Matt.
How are you, Brett? I have something for you a little bit later.
And I think I saw someone who started the Guilford Poets Guild. Maureen Corcoran, where are you? I want you to stand up, Maureen. I want to talk a little bit about this. Please stand up and be acknowledged. Maureen was one of 5 people who got together in the late 1990s, and the 5 decided to put out a poetry anthology, and they decided to name their group the Guilford Poets Guild. And so there is the genesis of our group. We did have a poetry group in Guilford that went back to the 1970s. And, but one of the 5 was Katrina Van Tassel. Some of you might know her as Katrina Worth. And she suggested that the poetry group that we had, which was called the Shoreline Poets, change its name to the Guilford Poets Guild. And it was unanimous. We thought that was a great idea. So there we are, and that was 25 years ago. And since then, we have published 2 other anthologies, and we're feeling pretty good about that. So, thank you, Maureen. I want to say before I start reading poetry that the Guilford Library on this coming Sunday, from the hours of 1:30 to 3:30, is going to have an ekphrastic poetry presentation. For those of you who might not be familiar with the word, ekphrastic. An ekphrastic poem is a poem that is about another art form. And it could be a wall hanging, and that's usually the art form that most ekphrastic poems are written about. But it could be sculpture, it could be dance, it could be anything that touches on the arts. So the reason I bring that up is because it's going to, there's a Guilford Art League exhibit downstairs now with some really good paintings. So how does an artist write an ekphrastic poem? We're told about the exhibit. We're asked to compose some poems. We have about a week to compose the poems. I think this exhibit that's downstairs opened to the public on the 6th. So here it is the 14th, 8 days ago. The Guilford poets, about 8 or 10 of us, have each come up with 1 or 2 poems, and all the artists will attend, and it's open to the public. The artists are very interested in finding out how we poets have interpreted on paper what they have hanging on the wall. So it's free, 1:30 to 3:30 on Sunday. As an example, I'm going to have my wife Andrea, this is Andrea, and Andrea and I have been married 41 years. We were both married previously. She brought 2 wonderful children into my family. I brought 5 into hers. We have 7 kids. We have 19 grandchildren. Our 12th great-grandchild was born today.
Oh, my goodness, wow.
But Andrea is, Andrea, stand over there, honey, because we need to have everybody stand. There you go. Andrea obviously is an artist. Andrea is also the person who reads my poem and comments on it in a friendly way before it goes anywhere. Quite often, after I read it to her, it goes back upstairs for a rewrite. So this is a painting of hers in oil, and the painting is called Bluffhead Farm. So I wanted to write a poem about that painting, and so I looked at it and I decided, okay, I'm going to do it. This is kind of like what, if you come Sunday, you'll see. This is called November Walk with Andrea. The leaves on the trail to the summit of Bluff Head are cascading from the trees, and you, struck with the urge to catch one, are swerving and grabbing with arms darting out like a teen discovering a new dance. A leaf floats onto my wool shirt. A red and yellow last hello and goodbye. No fair, you shout, plucking the leaf, laughing and playing the flirt. By the time we return home, the autumn sky has clouded up, promising rain tonight. Or will we wake to early snow? Thank you. I want to thank some people. I want to thank my mom, who composed poetry when we were little tykes. Occasionally she found her way into the Shoreline Times papers, and her poems were published there. And I want to go back in history, and I want to read a poem of hers as a thank you to her. Mom, I'm reading this poem to a great group of people, and here we go. And it's called A Wish. I don't know when she wrote it. Let's say 50, 60, 70 years ago, I have no idea. A wish. I want to keep seeing the green grass grow. I want to see trees budding, then turn to fantastic colors in the fall. I want to see the first robin and watch the birds fly south when winter comes. I want to see the first snowflakes and feel the brisk wind against my face. I want the warm feeling that a good handshake gives me. I want to look into someone's eyes that are steady and true. I want to say hi to people and have them say it back to me with real feeling. I want someone to really love me, not take me for granted just because I'm there. I want to be always not the one, I want to not always be the one who cares too much. I want someone to care too much for me. When I talk, I want someone to listen. I want someone to talk to me, and I will listen. Let me be a flower garden with the arms of the sun embracing me, the gentle breeze swaying me, and the raindrops caressing me. And her name was Dorothy Swift Whiteman. Mm-hmm. So that's my mom. I want to say thank you to my sister Betty, who is not here tonight. Betty is having a hard time getting around. She has a wonderful sense of humor still. She worked for the town of Guilford for 25 years. When the town decided to put up a monument remembering those in Guilford who fell during the Vietnam War, they went to Betty and they asked her to write the words that would go on that monument. And those words are, each peaceful dawn in this place, we are reminded of these men who died for their country. And I'm just going to read one poem of hers. Her husband was a stonemason. And this book of poetry, she published 3 books of poetry. And this one is called Poetry in Stone. And this is an ekphrastic book. You open up any page, and there's some of his artwork in stone. And with each picture that you see, she's written a poem. If you go to the Catholic cemetery in town, you'll see a stone wall around the cemetery. That's his work. His name was Abe, Irving Abel. And if you were to go to the Nut Plains Cemetery, you'll see a stone wall there, and that's his stone wall. And we know where all of the chimneys are in town, that we can point them out, and all the stone walls all over. So he has left his mark. And the last poem in this book, her husband died 24 years ago. And she's still here, and she longs for him. She says, in the last poem in the book, and it's entitled, On My Way to Forever. What will I take with me when I go? The whimsical side of me wants to know, for I'll be on my way to forever. I'll take memories of green trees in spring and blossoms that sing of all sorts of things, and stone walls that will never end, where they too will find rest in forever. So that's my sister. She is the one who came to me and said, Gordy, why don't you start investigating writing poems? My kid sister, Betty. She's 90, but she says, I'm in my 91st year. See, when you get to be a certain age, you don't hide your age, you start bragging about it. That's fine. I want to read a poem to you that covers several generations. And this is called The Clothesline. How many people here hang their clothes out on the clothesline? Wow, more than I would expect. It's about 6 or 7. That's great. Andrea loves to have clothes on the clothesline so she can smell them when they come in. And when we jump into bed and with new sheets, and boy, it's just great. So I can get excited about all kinds of things.
I see you jump into bed.
I'm crawling to bed. So the clothesline, lifted aloft, filled with fragrant fresh air, faded gray work shirts, shorts, socks, fruit of the loom underwear, and a blue towel reflecting the cerulean hue of the cloudless sky. This morning's laundry is a far cry from the diaper chore of 5 babies, one closely following the other, more than 60 years from here. Retired, this job suits me. The exercise of lifting from basket to line, the sun shining down, the cat neat and clean brushing against me. By contrast, my grandmother's clothesline, held high by a long pole, was laden with white shirts, waving to all who passed by. My grandfather wore a clean white shirt each day of his working career, which stretched out to his 87th year. Think of the scrubbing and ironing there. The unmentionable underapparel was hung on a drying rack in the back room, away from gossipy glances. My daughter, cast from that mold of hard-working genealogy, has no rope running from house to tree. She has no time to pin and slide each piece of cloth from north to south to catch the caress of the westerly breeze. Her day is ushered in with the uneven spin of the permanent press cycle and the boisterous blat of the buzzer, signaling the need to empty the Maytag now or risk wrinkles. Then off she goes, neatly attired, seeking her fortune in this whirling, shrinking, no ironing required world. I hobble around now, but because I'm 94, I have the right to brag a little. When I was in school, I lettered in 4 sports, and this isn't a 17, this is a 14. It's a sonnet, all sonnets are 14 lines long, and it's called Red Rover. Now, you're old enough to remember Red Rover. My body was my glory in my boyhood. The football field I owned that autumn day. The other team could rarely learn my way. I seldom ran the path they thought I should. In spring I hit a triple, and I stood and eyed the pitcher's wind up his delay, then flew toward home, much to his dismay, and scored before the catcher understood. Yet, long before those glories was this thrill. I stood before my first grade class, grinning. The last one not yet caught, I was still winning. Then I ran and dodged them at my will when they sang to me, Red Rover, Red Rover. When they sang to me, won't you come over? I'm going to finish with one more poem, and then we're going to hear from our new poet laureate. If I can find it. Here it is. The visitation. The visitation is different than a visit. Visitation means somebody shows up that's kind of important. And this takes place in the family farmhouse up on Route 77, which at one point we had a dairy farm with 20 cows, and at another point it became a riding stable with 22 horses. And that's several of the years of their growing up took place on the farm. Our great-granddaughter doesn't like to go there alone because she says the place is haunted. And I say, sure it's haunted. All of your ancestors are walking around and nobody's looking. So anyway, the visitation. So this took place when I was 87 because it says 87 years. In the family farmhouse, a celebration of my 87 years is taking place. I look out upon wife, sons, daughters, my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, those who have married into the family and with time have become family. They, all of them, are younger. I see myself a visitor from an older generation, viewing the ongoingness of offspring. And in doing so, I look over my shoulder to find a gathering of those older than me who have departed many years ago, who had lived on the farm, milked cows, fed chickens, ridden horses, pitched hay, mended clothes, made passionate love in the bedrooms, laughed, scrimped, celebrated their own ages, and lived lives worth the breath it took to be. And they are looking intently at their descendants. Curiosity shines in their eyes, and as they continue to look at each and every one of the living, I see the curiosity evolve into a satisfaction and then into peace. My daughter comes in from the kitchen with a birthday cake ablaze with candles, and everyone sings. everyone.
Next in our program is a presentation by our first selectman, Matt Hope. While he's getting here, I'd also like to thank the library for giving us this beautiful space every second Thursday to have our poetry in. We need a little more space tonight, but ordinarily it's a good size.
Thank you all. Lord, thank you. That's all we need to say for keeping culture alive in our community. You folks know better than I do what it means for us to be able to honor culture, to honor poetry, to honor living well, and you have been a wonderful inspiration to so many people.
Thank you.
Most of the poetry I did was when I was, I think, in grammar school.
Speak up.
Haiku, right? Which was sort of like cheating, because it was a form, right? But I have one poem that I remember from many, many years ago, Abu Ben Adam by James Lee Hunt, which was a story of an angel coming to a young child in their bedroom and telling them that their name was in the book of the Lord. I can't remember it. Abu Ben Adam has tried in Greece, a little one night from a deep dream of peace. It's still, and I could probably get more of it, but to me, poetry was a way for me, even as a young person, to understand life a little bit differently, and for the way other people saw life. So, again, enough about me. This is about you.
Matt, would you speak up a little bit?
I'm sorry.
Would you speak up a little bit?
I will. We're going to get to the important part now, which is the town of Guilford is presenting you with a certificate of appreciation. On behalf of the town of Guilford, the certificate is awarded to Gordy Whiten with heartfelt thanks and appreciation for serving as Guilford's Poet Laureate and for sharing your talents and the love of poetry with the citizens of Guilford under my signature and the seal of Guilford. Thank you.
Okay, and now we have our new poet laureate. Mark McGuire Schwartz believes that poetry should be full of laughter, one thing. And he believes it has the potential to save the world. Oh, I hope so. He has promoted poetry and the arts through his teaching, publishing the work of poets and artists, and producing poetry readings and other poetry programs. His own creative work includes fiction, drama, hybrid forms, and volumes of poetry. You don't have any books tonight for sale, do you? We'll get to that later. We're hoping to have him come and read in April, the second Thursday reading. We'll be sure to have some books of his for sale then. He has written books called Loss and Laughs, Love and Fauna, and Attic Chest. His poetry has also been published in numerous literary journals and on the bottoms of rocks. He has a BA degree in creative writing from Goddard College and a Master of Education degree from the University of Maine and an MFA degree from Southern Connecticut State University. So you can see he's well, his background is wonderful for this honor. He's also, and perhaps we are most excited about this, that he's created a new form of poetry, the 17, which you have heard about. And hopefully he'll have an example or two for us tonight. Welcome, Mark McGuire Schwartz.
There's no clock anymore, is there? So my wife tells me that I shouldn't be nervous because I do some teaching at Usadana Community College, and so I'm used to being up in front of people. So I'll try to think of you as a class. If you could all pass your homework in.
The dog ate it.
I am just touched and thrilled, and I am. Thank you to Gordy for doing such a great job at establishing this position and being the real poet of the town for so long, even before you had the position. And thank you to Gwen and Norm for your help, and to everyone in the guild, and to my producer. It's Academy Award Week, you know. It feels like I'm accepting an Academy Award. And I was going to do a joke, but you're not a joke crowd, so I'm not going to say thank you for giving me this Oscar. If I was going to say it, I'd have a prop and I'd say, thank you for giving me this Oscar. So I am really touched by being given this position. That's what I have to say. On poems. On poems. It's about poems. So yeah. Matt, first of all, thank you for supporting the arts and for supporting Gordy and me and the guild and everything. And all of those who live in this town know Matt's voice from his weekly phone calls that remind us all to get our COVID shots. I'm told that he's going to go around and check your cards and make sure you're up to date with the vaccines. But I don't know if you know that poetry is also a public health issue. The great William Carlos Williams said, "It is difficult to get news from poems, yet men die miserably every day for lack of what is found there." So that's an important public health issue. So maybe you could call everyone in town and read them a poem once a week. Okay. Should we talk? Yeah. So, this is called Only Guilford. It's a poem with 17 sections, and it has a dedication. It's for you, Gordy. 1. There are 169 municipalities in Connecticut, but only one Guilford. 2. There are many poets in Guilford. They rhyme, they scheme, they throw words out of windows, they drop them from rooftops. 3. There is one particular poet in Guilford who has always lived here and written about his town. 4. This is not to imply that he was among the first European settlers here in 1639. Or that he was here when they arrived. 5, the town had to grow and mellow a bit before Gordy finally arrived. 6, but he got right to work. 7, he grew, he ran, he worked, he played. He was of the town, in the town, and about the town. 8, some say Gordy and Guilford were going steady. 9, he absorbed the town, its buildings, its roads, its meadows, and its people. 10, and then he wrote. He wrote Hidden Pathways, the railroad station, the movie theater that is now long gone, and about the people lining up for movies long before the ticket seller had even arrived. 11, he wrote about cows crossing Boston Post Road and the traffic jam they caused. 12, Gordy wrote the old, the new, the then, the now. 13, he wrote about living with a group of people. He denies it was a hippie commune. Although it sounds like a hippie commune to me. Gordy wrote about barns, about the hidden shortcuts through the fields, about his brother's epic swim from Jacobs Beach to Grass Island and back. 15, the diner, the poorhouse, the WPA, and cotton candy at the fair all appear in Gordy's poems. And he even tells us at the time he made a tree speak. 16, there are 169 towns in Connecticut. Most have town halls and churches and fire departments and schools. 17, but only a few towns have special poets to write about them, and only Guilford has Gordy. Okay, this is called Walking with, yeah, okay. You just can imagine what I was supposed to say leading into that poem, but this is a poem called, by the way, it has 17 parts. It's called Walking with Zach. 1, I'm walking down the middle of the street with Zach. There is no traffic. They say it will rain. 2, the fog is blowing off snow. It is 60 degrees out after 10 days of less than 10 degrees. They say the rain will be torrential. 3, there's a grocery store in town called the Big Y. Wikipedia tells me that it's a chain that employs 12,000 people in southern New England. 4, to me, Big Y sounds like a niche market for philosophers and poets. 5, I tell my dog to eat some snow before it's gone. Such is life. 6, Zach loves to eat the snow. He chases blowing leaves that seem a season too late. We are walking. I have an age and a location and an attitude. It's a quantum mechanics reference, if you like. You see, well, why would you care? How come there's no 9 in this? That's why that. 9, 10. In the fog, I remember Alice asking the Cheshire Cat which path to follow. 11, it depends where you want to go, he tells her. 12, is that for me?
Yeah.
12. 9. At home, I turn on an app called Microgenesis. It builds itself as GPS for the soul. 13. On the app, a man is spouting about Arabs and Muslims. He seems not to understand the difference. Immigration and inflation, he snarls. Mike Jen, I say, less hate. And it switches to a man predicting planetary doom. 14, the climate, the pollution, locusts and drought, he says. If the war doesn't destroy us, then asteroids will. We're due for an asteroid. And there's always war. 15, I asked the Mike Jen app for less gloomy before a soothsayer can predict the evils of aliens. You only know what you know, it says, but aliens know much more. 16, I asked Mike Jen if my poems will be rust. Of course it answers, everything must. 17, last night I wrote about putting things into boxes. First I put truth into a large one, but it vaporized and leaked out under the cover. Today I found a poem by Gregory Corso. It was about putting truth in a box. I have an age and a location, but why should anyone care? So we're reading poems about mothers, huh? But I don't have the poem by my mother. It's, we're almost at St. Patty's Day. And then Easter's coming mighty early. So here's a poem about Passover. It's called I Love You Borscht. The widow Cohn prepares for her first Passover alone. Actually, it was for my mother. The widow Schwartz prepares for her, but I don't want to, yeah. I am old and need some borscht. Passover is coming. I need matzah. No one can do the shopping for me. Who would know what type of soup greens I need? Take me to Pathmark. I must walk among the green fields of celery and dill. I must do it for myself. I must look the turnips in their eyes. I must pick the parsnips that will make the mock chicken soup. Not that anyone will be there to eat it besides me. I must get the curly parsley, not the other type, and the bitter, bitter herbs. We used to make our own horseradish when I was young. Your father used to love that soup, and the gefilte fish, which I know you don't eat. Let's go to Pathmark. There's some things I have to get. Parsley, matzah, and borscht. Do one more. And I believe it's very tough. I believe that it's a poet's duty in a difficult world to write about those difficulties, to write about the state of the world. Not to necessarily be political, but to deal with some of the things politics deals with. I also believe it's almost impossible to do that well, because people tend to, this is called release poems. Because every poem is a poem about freedom, before it is too late, because of what they're saying, because the world is the world, and that's no good. Because scientists have determined the basic particle is beauty. Because the structure of the world is fractured. Before they start rounding up poets, before it is too late. Because one of my uncles says democracy is shaky and will not last. Because another uncle says there's nothing we can do. Because another uncle says the world is incapable of dealing with the climate. Because poets are taking themselves off social media, because I am being paranoid, because I know a lot of Republicans, because some of them believe certain things, even though those certain things are not nearly the fabric of the universe, because if people believe certain things, then what stops them from believing others? Because people are dying, because there's nothing we can do, because it's cold out, because the wind chill is cold and everything is cold, because the ash trees are falling on my block, because jelly no longer associates with peanut butter, because I can't tell you what else, because I can't bring because they are rounding up poets, because they have rounded up Uyghurs, because they have rounded up utopians, because they have rounded up environmentalists, because I am scared to mention the groups they are rounding up, because people have, and this is true, shot at houses in my town that were displaying Black Lives Matter signs. Because my Black Lives Matter sign was stolen from my lawn, because the signs that remain on lawns offer frightening messages, because we cannot know who to trust, because the signs are clear, because bridges are falling, because cheating is now considered okay, and the honor has been deleted from the rules, because truth no longer matters, because I wake up in the middle of the night worried, because there are images I cannot escape, release the poems. Because I'm hoping there is hope, though hope is hiding. Because this feeling will just not go away. Because this poem has no end, release the poems. Release the poems, release the poems, release the poems.
poets may not save the world, but we're going to die trying, right? I believe that Matt has another proclamation.
But before I read this proclamation, I just want to take the opportunity to say that only in Guilford, or maybe not only in Guilford, but I think only in Guilford, can the first selectman have been late to this event, because he was downstairs. He was downstairs at a presentation related to transgender youth and the challenges that our children are facing, some of our children are facing, and the challenges some people put in front of their parents to help them out. Yet, we're up here to transition from one poet laureate to another poet laureate.
It might confuse people.
It's the trans part. Some of you folks have probably taken some Latin, if I'm not mistaken. Trans is a very definitive word in Latin. In or out, if I'm not mistaken. Hate to say it, you're out, you're in. That's quite honestly why I love Guilford, right? Because we can all be sharing the same space, right? And people can appreciate and tolerate everybody's space. So, anyway. I guess it's not really official until I read this, is what I understand, right?
I think so.
I think we've been nominated, and this makes it official. Whereas the Board of Selectmen of the town of Guilford wishes to continue to promote poetry and the arts, we recognize Mark McGuire Schwartz as Guilford's new Poet Laureate. With its beautiful coastline, its historic homes, its rural areas, its wonderful people, and its commitment to culture, our community both inspires and supports poetry. We value the capacity of poetry to open our eyes, expand our perspectives, and help us find the truth and beauty all around us. Therefore, to support the vibrant and flourishing poetry community in Guilford, we appoint Mark as Guilford Poet Laureate and charge him with promoting poetry and the arts. And, whereas Mark has demonstrated a many decades-long history of encouraging, supporting, and promoting writers through his running and co-directing several poetry reading series, his teaching, his publishing, and co-editing a journal of poetry and art, his giving presentations at academic conferences, his leading workshops, his volunteering for poetry and arts organizations, his creating, organizing, and running multiple poetry events, and whereas Mark's writing accomplishments include publishing several books, including 289, a book of 17s, Lost and Laughs, Love and Fauna, and Attic Chest, as well as publishing poetry and fiction in numerous journals, giving numerous poetry readings, having his plays including Meeting Arthur Miller, produced in Connecticut and New Jersey, and whereas Mark brings a new, original poetic voice to his work that incorporates stylistic ideas and methods, not only from new and traditional writing, but also from music and the visual arts. His evocative poems use clear, direct language in innovative ways. Mark strives to make poetry that fits the world of our time and that promotes compassion, peace, truth, justice, and humor. Among Mark's creative achievements is the creation and development of a new poetic form called the 17. Now, therefore, we, the Board of Selectmen of the town of Guilford, extend our sincere appreciation for all the contributions you have made through your poetry, and we officially declare you Guilford Poet Laureate. In witness whereof, we hereunto set our hands and cause the seal of the town of Guilford to be affixed this day of March 2024 with thanks and appreciation.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you all again.
Thank you all. That ends our evening. You were wonderful, attentive audience. Thank you so much. Good night.